The full episode is now available on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Please see the link in the description for more details.
So I know we're a little late on this, and it has to be said, but Henry Cavill leaving the show is probably the best thing that happened to the series and Henry himself because of how bad of an adaptation it is. Netflix destroys almost every single series it tries to adapt, and I think the only way to really save the franchise from this stain is to let it die and revive it on a more competent streaming service. I know people are going to get on my case for saying that and opening the video like this, but it's just not that good. And Henry, my love, I just want you to know, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Let's get into it. I've been recently going through Witcher 3, and God, it's such a fucking phenomenal game. And it's such a shame what they did to the show. Because we will do a Witcher podcast, but I also want to put out my own like gigantic Witcher video.
I've been begging Carmine to do a Witcher podcast for literally years, because like in the sense, because we talk about how like, okay, how I know all the lore for Ice and Fire. Like Carmine is apparently like the world's expert on Witcher.
No, I am not. Do not listen to him. Preston, you're condemning me here because you say that, and the moment I get something wrong or forget something, the criticism is going to be even bigger than it would be otherwise. So, yeah. But no, we will do Witcher podcast. I just want to release my own big video on the series first before we tackle all of it in a big podcast. So, but no, I really like The Witcher. I love the lore and the overall story, and I really appreciate Henry Cavill and how much of a fan he is on the material. And what I will say, I have a lot of issues with the show. But most of the casting is actually not bad, especially when you do something Witcher related. You have to get right the three main characters: your Geralt, your Yennefer, and your Ciri. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Dandelion.
Who didn't you like? You didn't like Ciri or Yennefer?
I actually love Ciri. I think the casting is great. As someone who was a fan of the Power Rangers when I was a kid, I always found it super weird that they got actual grown-ass adults to play teenagers. But for Ciri, they got an actual teenager, I believe Freya Allan is her name, to play a teenager. So good on them for that.
Yeah.
And Henry Cavill as Geralt. Perfect. I think he's great. He wants to play Shepard in Mass Effect, the Mass Effect video games. I'm like, come on, man, leave some acting roles for everybody else. But no, I think he's great. And what's great about Henry Cavill as Geralt is that he actually read the source material. And I'm not saying you have to read the source material to be good at what you do. Take Stephen Delane, who played Stannis. I thought he was a great Stannis, and he had no idea what was happening throughout the entire show.
I mean, well, some actors are just so talented that they can phone it in and still be great. And he was phoning it in, like, definitely. But it was still great because he was so top-notch, top of his game. Yeah. Didn't know anything about Game of Thrones, nothing about Ice and Fire. Hated the show, like didn't care, just read his lines and was perfect. Like
he constantly asked the Davos actor, like, what's happening in this scene that we just did? And the guy explains it to him.
Right. But I guess, when you're a rock star, you can just kind of do that. Like, okay. So, I've only seen Witcher season 1. I guess it was kind of interesting the times they pulled a Westworld time skip kind of thing where you thought things were going on at the same time and then they weren't. I don't know. Was Yennefer seemed fine to me, but I don't know anything other than Yennefer.
Yennefer's casting was very mediocre for me. Like, I don't think the actress is bad, but I don't think they captured the femme fatale look when casting her. Anya Chalotra, she doesn't give off that dangerous woman vibe. She more or less seems like the type of person who would apologize profusely if you bumped into her on the street on accident, But as off as the casting was, some of the writing decisions they made for the character are almost in conflict with who she is in the books. I'll have to go into it in my own big Witcher video that I need to put out, but Yennefer, in my personal opinion, is just way too different for my taste. How do I explain this?
See.
Like, take Dave and Dan, for example. They changed up quite a few bits of personality from the books to the show with Game of Thrones, and it worked. But I don't think the writers hit the nail on the head for the character in regards to, like, The Witcher and this one character specifically, amongst others. Though Yennefer is the least fucked up character, there are other ones they messed up as well. But, So the news here is that not only is Henry not returning as Superman, but this might have been a bad move considering he also left The Witcher.
Yes.
The whole Superman thing, I'm not really going to go into too much detail on because we don't really do DC type news here. And plus that's kind of cut and dry. James Gunn doesn't have, Henry Cavill in mind for the young Superman that he wants to, move forward in the DC expanded universe. So that's cut and dry. But no, him leaving The Witcher, I think there's something there. But they will be replacing him with Liam Hemsworth as Geralt, which, okay, he's not the most memorable of the Hemsworth brothers, but we'll see.
I'm trying to think, have I actually seen, most of what I know Liam Hemsworth for doing is dating Miley Cyrus.
Well, he was in Hunger Games for a bit. I don't remember being in there, but apparently he was there, so sure.
Okay, so he's kind of, it's funny because we watch Westworld and Thor and stuff like this, so we kind of know the other Hemsworths better. But they're
like the Baldwins. Remember the Baldwins? Everybody's like, "Who's your favorite Baldwin?"
Right. I mean, it's always Alec, right?
I don't know. The other one's in the running. He hasn't killed anybody, to our knowledge. So,
well, for a while, I suppose, William Baldwin. He was the one that was in Slither. He was Flatliners and such, right? But yeah, for the most part, yeah, you go. It's a big jump when you go down the list. You've got Chris Hemsworth, and then it's a big jump down to the other Hemsworths, right?
But no, the reason this is big news is because Henry Cavill, from the start, said he's committed to a full 7-season Witcher type of situation. And we've seen nooks and crannies of him complaining over the years that, hey, it wasn't like this in the books. Hey, blah, blah, blah. He's the opposite of the Stennis actor, where he read the books, he's a fan, he's played the video games, he's a huge fan, and he kept bothering the showrunners and the writers by saying, hey, we should probably follow this part from the books. Hey, we should probably do this from the books. And yeah, they kept doing their own thing. They butchered a lot of the characters. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's season 8 bad, but it's kind of like season 6 bad from the start. Yeah. With how they fuck around with the characters.
I mean, very briefly with what I thought of Witcher, I think it suffered from the time skips where it didn't feel like any time had passed, and yet everyone was talking about how years had passed, and that kind of struck me as odd.
So Witcher's age slowly, and Sorceress's literally none at all.
Right. And so our grounding character is his bard friend, right? And his bard friend. Yeah, so he'll have an adventure with him, and then the next episode it's oh, I haven't seen you in years, and it's well, we just saw you last episode, there was a bit of that, the time skips being disorienting and not really understanding what's going on, because at the same time we had the teenage girl plot going on.
It makes you really appreciate how House of the Dragon did the time skips.
Sure, I realize that time skips are disastrous, as well as House of the Dragon did them, and it's hard to do them better. They're still disastrous for House of the Dragon. They're still some of the worst aspects of the show happen after big time skips.
But the way it was handled was done fairly well. It through conversation, very nicely done.
Right. I mean, it's the best you can do. I essentially, it's time skip is like getting a tumor. Tumors can be sometimes the tumor is dealt with all right, and sometimes the tumor is not dealt with all right, but it's still a freaking tumor, and it's still cancer. And that's what I think time skips are like cancer. You can deal with them as best as you can, and maybe you can recover from them, but they're still bad. Okay, that's my opinion about them. Okay, so yeah, I think the time skips in Witcher were weird. I guess I mean I connected with Geralt and I connected with the Bard, but I guess I didn't really care about any other characters.
That's the other character I thought was really good, Jaskier. Like, I thought the casting for him was fucking great. Honestly, as much shit as I'm going to give the showrunner in a couple of minutes, I probably would have fucked with the character of Jaskier a bit more, where I would have made him like some immortal being that the characters never address to just infuriate the audience. Wait a minute, Jaskier was there 1,000 years ago, but what? And the characters would never address it. It just never comes up.
Like Tom Bombadil, he's just
yes,
like there,
he's Tom
no
Bombadil. Yes,
explanation.
but I can't help but feel bad for him because he is such a great actor. I loved him in Mission Impossible. I liked him in The Tudors. The whole Superman thing seems very dumb in my opinion, and if anything, they could always cast him in something for House of the Dragon, because I put up a poll about who he should play if they do cast him in the series, and of course, people were saying Cregan Stark, one of the Dragon Seeds, and I love this one comment here. Yeah, he should play Shira Seastar. I was like, okay. So what do you think about that in regards to like the rumors that the showrunners and the writers like just they don't like the source material, and Henry Cavill probably left because he wasn't having a good time? Like, what do you think?
I usually am one who's a little more cynical and assumes it's about money. That's my first I think this idea that he doesn't like the source material is a little too good to be true.
No. Henry loves the books.
I'm sorry. This idea that he is like the fan and disapproves of the show's direction for the same reasons that guys on the internet are arguing about it do. It just sounds a little too good to be true. I just don't think that's probably his mindset. I think he probably just wanted more money. Like that's my gut. But I studied economics and so they always have me in the money, like look to the money first. I think like your feelings about, I think it's like very tempting to be like, oh, I like Henry Cavill. These are my opinions about The Witcher. He's leaving. Maybe he thinks like I do. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, you know.
No, that's very fair. And maybe you're correct on that, but I don't know, for a guy who is like such a big fan to all of a sudden leave, you're right, it could be money, because usually a lot of these things just really come down to, am I being paid enough to stick around?
Sure,
but is it really that worth it?
Here's the other thing. You're a huge fan of Star Wars. You admit that the prequels were a bunch of shit, but at the same time, if George Lucas wanted you to be in Attack of the Clones, would you have would you have done it? And the answer is probably yeah. Like if he's really,
I'm gonna disappoint you. This is one of those things where like if George came to me for Star Wars, or if George came to me to like House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, I'd probably decline, because as much as I enjoy them, I don't want to be a part of it. I'd rather be on the outside looking in and just enjoying it as a fan.
All right,
that makes sense.
All right, you don't want to be like guard number 8 in season 8 of Game of Thrones, like getting killed.
Would you?
I'd probably go and be an extra, and if I was going to be on screen being an extra and getting killed at the Battle of Winterfell, sure, why not? That sounds fun. You know.
I'm glad you brought up Star Wars real quick. Andor. Why the fuck is Andor so good? Like, why is Andor such a freaking good show? Because this last episode with his name is Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Where Andy Serkis, the entire time, he's like, just chill out, follow your stuff, you'll be out here. How many guards are there? Chill out, relax, don't worry about it. And at the very end, there are 12 guards on the floor.
Yeah.
Like,
brilliant. Boom, 12 guards.
Why is Star Wars Andor so good? Because you keep saying, like, it's the best thing since Empire. In 40 years?
It's definitely the best thing since Empire. Like
in 40 years, really?
Absolutely. What else you got?
Oh, my God.
What you got? Return of the Jedi? Phantom Menace, really Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, like Rogue One, Solo, Mandalorian Season 1, Mandalorian Season 2, Book of Boba Fett.
Season 1 and Season 2 were good. They were fine. I liked Season 1 was fine. Season 2 was good.
Right, but would you ever say Andor is fine? No, you'd say Andor is fucking great. Mandalorian is fine. Mandalorian is pretty good. No, it's not great.
That's my theory, though, is that they wrote this not for Star Wars, but then they just input Star Wars stuff in it because there's no aliens, there's no like Jedi, Sith, X-Wings.
I'll tell you why Andor is good. Andor is good because they decided to write a good script and put in good acting and have like
it's no way it's that simple. Then why don't they do this every time?
Because they're too busy shoving fucking baby Yodas and various like cameos into shit, hoping to sell a toy. Like, it's what we've been watching. Star Wars, I mean, let's be honest, Star Wars for a long time, and even the original trilogy, was a mechanism to sell toys. Okay, it's always been a mechanism to sell toys. Okay, it's a show, it's a thing for kids, so they can sell them toys, so they can sell them lunchboxes or whatever.